They say money changes people, but I never imagined it would make my own family disappear overnight with everything I'd worked for. I'm Sophia, and I'm about to tell you how building a successful tech startup cost me the people I loved most, and how a single note changed everything I thought I knew about my family. 3 years ago, I was just another broke software engineer working out of my cramped studio apartment in Austin, Texas. I had this crazy idea for an app that would revolutionize how small businesses manage their inventory. Nothing glamorous, nothing sexy, just a solution to a real problem I'd witnessed during my part-time job at a local electronics store. My family thought I was nuts. My mom kept asking when I was going to get a real job and stop playing with computers. My older brother Marcus rolled his eyes every time I mentioned the app, telling anyone who'd listen that his little sister was going through a phase. Even my dad, who'd always been supportive of my dreams, seemed skeptical about my chances of making it in tech. But I believed in my idea. I spent 18 months coding, testing, pitching to investors, living on ramen noodles and determination. When I finally launched Inventory Mate, I had exactly $347 in my bank account and enough anxiety to power a small city. Then everything changed. Within 6 months, we had 10,000 users. Within a year, we'd been featured in TechCrunch and Forbes. By month 18, 3 major companies were in a bidding war to acquire us. I sold Inventory Mate for $12 million. $12 million. At 28 years old, I went from struggling to pay rent to having more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. And you know what the craziest part was? The first thing I wanted to do was share it with my family. I'd grown up in a middle-class household where money was always tight. Dad worked 2 jobs, maintenance at the local hospital during the day, security at a warehouse at night. Mom cleaned houses and did bookkeeping for small businesses. Marcus had dropped out of college to help support the family when Dad had his heart attack 5 years earlier. These were good people who'd sacrificed for each other their whole lives. They deserved to finally have some security, some comfort, some of the opportunities they'd given up to make sure I could chase my dreams. So I moved them into a beautiful house in the hills overlooking Austin, paid off all their debts, set up college funds for Marcus's kids, bought Dad a new truck, and Mom the car she'd been wanting for years. For about 6 months, it felt like a fairy tale. Family dinners in the new house, vacation trips we could never afford before, the simple joy of not having to check bank balances before making purchases. But then things started getting weird. It started small. Mom would make comments about how I was showing off when I'd suggest nice restaurants. Marcus began treating me differently, like I was some kind of stranger instead of his little sister. Dad seemed uncomfortable with the gifts, always asking if I was sure I could afford it. "Sophia," he said one night after a family dinner, "all this money, it's changing things, changing us. Dad, it's just making life easier. Isn't that a good thing?" He looked at me with those tired eyes that had seen too many double shifts. "Easy isn't always better, sweetheart. Sometimes struggle is what keeps a family together." I thought he was being dramatic. I thought they just needed time to adjust to our new circumstances. I was wrong. Last Tuesday, I came home from a business meeting to find my house completely empty. Not just empty of people, empty of everything. Furniture, artwork, electronics, even the kitchen appliances. Gone. At first, I thought we'd been robbed. I called 911, convinced that someone had broken in and stolen everything while I was out. But then I found the envelope on my desk, the only thing left in the entire house. Inside was a letter from my mom. "Sophia, we've taken what we felt we earned. You'll understand someday that family is more important than money. We're starting fresh somewhere you won't find us. Don't try to contact us. Consider this our resignation from being your charity cases." Charity cases. They saw themselves as charity cases. I sat in that empty house, reading that letter over and over again, trying to make sense of how giving my family everything I had could have driven them away. That's when I remembered Dad's desk, the old wooden desk he'd inherited from his father, the one he'd insisted on keeping even after I'd bought him a beautiful new office setup. It was the only piece of furniture I hadn't replaced, and apparently, it was the only thing they'd left behind. I walked over to it, running my hands along the worn surface where Dad had paid bills and written letters for 20 years. And that's when I noticed something strange. One of the drawers wasn't quite closed all the way. Inside, tucked under some old receipts, was a folded piece of paper with my name on it, Dad's handwriting. My hands were shaking as I opened it, because somehow I knew that whatever was written on that paper was going to change everything, and I was right. But before I tell you what that note said, what it revealed about my family, about the money, about everything I thought I knew. I need you to hit that like button if you're already hooked on this story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Are you thinking this family was wrong to take Sophia's money, or do you think there's more to this story than meets the eye? And make sure you're subscribed, because this tale of family betrayal and hidden secrets is about to take turns that will blow your mind. Trust me, what my dad wrote in that note will change how you think about family, money, and the price of success forever, because sometimes the people who seem to betray you are actually trying to save you from something much worse. I sat on the floor of my empty house, holding that piece of paper like it was made of dynamite. Dad's handwriting was careful, deliberate, the way he wrote when something really mattered. "Sophia," it began, "if you're reading this, then we've done something that probably looks unforgivable. I need you to understand that everything we took, we didn't take for ourselves. We took to protect you." "Protect me? From what?" 3 months ago, Marcus came to me with information about your business that scared me more than anything has in my entire life. I'm leaving this note because I love you too much to let you face what's coming alone. My heart started pounding. What information? What was coming? Do you remember when you first started getting serious interest from investors? How excited Marcus was about helping you navigate the business side of things. You thought he was finally supporting your dream. But Marcus wasn't trying to help you succeed, Sophia. He was trying to position himself to take advantage of your success. I felt sick. Marcus had been the one who'd connected me with several key investors. He'd introduced me to the lawyer who'd handled my acquisition deal. He'd been so proud, telling everyone how his little sister was a tech genius, and he was helping her make it big. Marcus has been planning this for over a year. The house, the cars, the money we've spent. He's been documenting all of it, building a case that you've been irresponsible with your windfall, that you need family oversight of your finances. The room started spinning. He's been working with a lawyer, not the one who helped you with the sale, a different one. They've been preparing paperwork to have you declared financially incompetent. The plan was to get legal guardianship over your assets, claiming that your erratic spending and impulsive generosity prove you can't handle this kind of money. Financially incompetent. My own brother was trying to steal my money by claiming I was mentally unfit to manage it. The gifts, the house, everything we've accepted from you. Marcus has been framing it as evidence of your instability. In his version of events, you're a troubled young woman who came into money too fast and started throwing it around recklessly, putting yourself and your family at financial risk. I thought about all those times Marcus had seemed uncomfortable with my generosity, all those moments when he'd asked if I was sure about a purchase or a gift. I'd thought he was being protective. He was building a legal case. I found out about this plan 2 weeks ago when I overheard a phone call between Marcus and his lawyer. They were discussing timelines, talking about when to file the paperwork. Marcus said, and I'll never forget this, that he was doing you a favor by saving you from yourself before you ended up broke and alone. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper. Your mother doesn't know. She's been so grateful for the financial security, so proud of what you've accomplished. She has no idea that Marcus has been manipulating all of us to build his case. Mom didn't know. She thought they were leaving because they couldn't handle being charity cases, but really Dad was trying to protect me from my own brother's betrayal. I couldn't let this happen, Sophia. I couldn't stand by and watch Marcus destroy you financially and emotionally. So I convinced your mother and Marcus that we needed to leave, that the money was changing us in unhealthy ways. I told them we were taking what we felt we'd earned through the sacrifices we'd made for your success. It was the only way I could think of to get us out of the picture before Marcus could execute his plan. Dad had orchestrated the whole thing. The disappearance, the empty house, even Mom's harsh letter. The money we took, $2, $3 million in cash and assets. I've put into a trust account that you can access with the information I've included at the bottom of this letter. We haven't stolen from you, sweetheart. We've just removed ourselves as evidence in Marcus's case against you. I flipped the paper over. There was an account number, a password, and the name of a bank in Dallas. Marcus thinks we've run off with your money to start a new life somewhere. He's furious, but he can't pursue his legal case now because his main evidence, our irresponsible spending of your money, is gone. Without us around to serve as examples of your poor judgment, his case falls apart. Brilliant. Dad had outmaneuvered Marcus completely. I know this is painful. I know it feels like betrayal. But Marcus was going to take everything from you, and he was going to do it using your love for us as the weapon. This was the only way I could think of to stop him. There was more. I need you to be very careful now, Sophia. Marcus is going to come to you soon. probably within the next few days. He's going to play the role of the concerned brother, upset about the family's betrayal, offering to help you recover from this traumatic experience. Don't trust him. Don't sign anything he brings you. Don't give him any access to your accounts or legal affairs. He may seem sincere, but remember, he's been planning to steal your life's work for over a year. The final paragraph made me cry. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Prouder than I've ever been of anything in my life. You built something incredible from nothing, and you did it with integrity and determination. Don't let Marcus's greed make you doubt what you've accomplished. When this is all over, when you've protected yourself from what he was planning, call the number I've written below. We'll find a way to be a family again, one that's based on love instead of money. Stay strong, stay smart, and remember that sometimes the people who seem to abandon you are actually fighting the hardest battle they can to save you. Love always, Dad. I sat in that empty house, crying over a letter that had just turned my entire understanding of the last week upside down. My family hadn't betrayed me. They'd saved me. But Marcus, my big brother, the person I'd trusted to help me navigate my success, he was the real enemy. And according to Dad's timeline, he was going to show up any day now, ready to play the role of the supportive sibling while secretly planning to destroy me. The question was, what was I going to do when he did? Because now that I knew what he was planning, I had the chance to turn the tables on him completely. Marcus thought he was so smart, manipulating the family situation to build his legal case, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated Dad. And now, he was about to underestimate me. I didn't have to wait long. 48 hours after finding Dad's note, Marcus showed up at my door with coffee, flowers, and what I now recognized as a perfectly rehearsed performance of concerned brotherly love. Sophia, oh my God, I am so sorry, he said, pulling me into a hug that felt completely different now that I knew the truth. I can't believe Mom and Dad did this to you. I've been calling them non-stop, but their phones are disconnected. I let him hold me, playing the role of the devastated younger sister, while mentally cataloging every word he said. I had no idea they were planning this, he continued, stepping back to look at me with what appeared to be genuine worry. I mean, I knew they were uncomfortable with some of the spending, but to just disappear with your money? It's unthinkable. Unthinkable. Right. Marcus, I don't understand what happened. Everything was going so well, and then suddenly Mom's leaving me this horrible letter about being charity cases. I know. Listen, why don't we sit down? We need to figure out how to handle this situation. We went to the living room, or what used to be the living room before everything was taken. Now it was just an empty space with carpet impressions where the furniture used to be. Jesus, they really cleaned you out, Marcus said, shaking his head. Sophia, I hate to ask this, but do you have any idea how much they took? Here it was. The fishing expedition. I don't know exactly. I haven't had time to go through all the accounts yet. I made my voice small, defeated. It feels like everything, Marcus. The house payments, the cars, the cash I'd given them access to for emergencies. Emergency access? His eyes sharpened slightly. You gave them direct access to your accounts? Just one account, the one I used for family expenses. But there was... I paused, pretending to calculate. God, there was probably close to $3 million in there. I watched Marcus's face carefully. For just a split second, I saw something that looked like excitement flash across his features before he composed himself back into concerned brother mode. $3 million, he repeated slowly. Sophia, that's a significant amount of money. I know. I'm such an idiot. I should have been more careful, but they're family, you know? I trusted them. Of course you did. Anyone would have. He leaned forward, reaching for my hand. But Sophia, we need to be practical here. This kind of financial manipulation, it might be criminal. We should probably contact the authorities. Authorities. Just like Dad had predicted. Marcus, I can't. They're our parents. I can't have them arrested. I know it's hard, but think about it from a legal perspective. If you don't report this, if you don't document what they've done, you could be setting yourself up for worse problems down the road. Worse problems? Well, think about it. You're a successful young entrepreneur who just lost millions of dollars to family manipulation. If this gets out, it could affect your business reputation, your ability to get future investments. People might start questioning your judgment. There it was. The setup. What are you saying? I'm saying that we need to get ahead of this story. We need to document everything that happened. Show that you were the victim here. not someone who was reckless with money. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened what looked like a notes app. Let's start with a timeline. When did you first give them access to your accounts? What were the amounts involved? How many questionable financial decisions were made? Questionable financial decisions. He was already framing my generosity as poor judgment. Marcus, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Sophia, I know it's overwhelming, but we have to be smart here. Look, I've been doing some research since this happened, and there are legal protections for people in your situation. My situation? People who come into large amounts of money quickly and might need help managing it responsibly. There are ways to set up oversight, safeguards that can protect you from this kind of thing happening again. Oversight, safeguards. The exact language Dad had warned me about. I don't understand. What kind of oversight? Well, there are financial conservatorships, trustees, family members who can help monitor large expenditures to make sure everything is being handled appropriately. He was doing it. Right there in my empty living room, Marcus was laying the groundwork for exactly what Dad had warned me about. Marcus, are you saying I need someone else to control my money? Not control, Sophia. Advise. Support. Look at what just happened. You trusted the wrong people and lost millions of dollars. Wouldn't it be smart to have some kind of system in place to prevent that from happening again? I let silence hang in the air for a moment, watching him try to read my expression. I just never thought I'd need that kind of help. Nobody thinks they need it, until something like this happens. But Sophia, there's no shame in admitting that managing this kind of wealth is complicated. Most people who come into money suddenly struggle with it. Do you really think I'm struggling? I think you're generous to a fault, and that generosity made you vulnerable to manipulation. There's nothing wrong with wanting to take care of family, but maybe there's a smarter way to do it. What would that look like? Marcus leaned back, and I could see him shifting into what I now recognized as his prepared pitch. Well, hypothetically, you could set up a family trust with professional management. Someone responsible, someone who knows you and cares about your best interests, could serve as a trustee. They'd handle the major financial decisions, make sure everything is legitimate and well documented, protect you from future situations like this. And who would serve as this trustee? It would need to be someone you trust completely, someone who has your best interests at heart and understands your values. He paused, waiting for me to connect the dots. Someone like you? I mean, if you felt comfortable with that arrangement, I'd be honored to help. I have business experience. I understand your industry. And obviously, I care about protecting you. There it was, the whole plan, laid out exactly as Dad had predicted. Marcus wanted me to voluntarily hand over control of my finances to him, framed as protection from the very situation he'd helped orchestrate. That's actually really thoughtful of you, Marcus. You think so? Yeah. I mean, after what just happened, having family oversight might be exactly what I need. I watched relief flood across his face. I'm so glad you see it that way. I was worried you might think I was overstepping. Not at all. Actually, when could we start setting something like this up? I could make some calls tomorrow. Get the paperwork started. The sooner we get this in place, the sooner you'll be protected. Protected. From him. Marcus, can I ask you something? Anything. How long have you been thinking about this? The trust idea, I mean. For just a moment, his carefully composed expression flickered. Oh, just since this situation with Mom and Dad started. I've been researching options, trying to figure out how to help you. Liar. That's so sweet of you. I'm lucky to have a brother who cares enough to research financial protection strategies. Of course. Family takes care of family, right? Absolutely, I said, smiling at him with what I hoped looked like genuine gratitude. Marcus had no idea that I knew exactly what he was doing. He thought he was manipulating a naive younger sister who'd just been traumatized by family betrayal. Instead, he was walking straight into a trap of his own making, because now that I knew his plan, I was going to let him think it was working right up until the moment I destroyed him with it. The next morning, Marcus called me bright and early, with news that he'd already been working on solutions for my situation. Sophia, I've got good news. I spoke with a lawyer friend of mine who specializes in asset protection, and he thinks we can get something set up pretty quickly. A lawyer friend. I wondered if this was the same lawyer Dad had overheard Marcus talking to, or if he had a whole network of people helping him plan my financial downfall. That's amazing, Marcus. What did he say? He thinks a conservatorship might be the way to go, given what happened with Mom and Dad. It would give you legal protection and peace of mind, while ensuring that someone responsible is helping monitor major financial decisions. conservatorship. Not just a trust or advisory role, full legal control over my assets. How would that work exactly? Well, the court would appoint a conservator to oversee your finances. It's usually someone close to you, someone who understands your situation and has your best interests at heart. And you think you could be that person? If you'd trust me with that responsibility, yes. I've already started documenting everything that happened with Mom and Dad, and my lawyer friend thinks we have a strong case for temporary emergency conservatorship. Because I was apparently in such immediate danger from my own financial decisions that the court needed to step in immediately. What kind of documentation have you been putting together? Well, the timeline of events, the amounts involved, evidence of the financial manipulation you've been subject to. Evidence, photos of the house, receipts for some of the larger purchases, bank statements showing the transfers to Mom and Dad. We need to build a clear picture of how your generosity was exploited. My generosity was exploited, all right. Just not by the people Marcus was claiming. Marcus, can I see what you've put together so far? I want to make sure everything is accurate. Of course. Actually, why don't I come over later today? We can go through everything together, and I can walk you through what the lawyer needs for the filing. That sounds perfect. After we hung up, I sat in my empty house and tried to process the sheer audacity of what Marcus was doing. He wasn't just planning to steal my money. He was creating an entire legal narrative in which stealing my money was actually saving me from myself. I spent the day preparing for his visit. I called the bank Dad had mentioned in his note and confirmed that the account was real and accessible. $2.3 million, exactly as he'd said. All the money my family had stolen from me, safely tucked away where Marcus couldn't touch it. Then I did something that felt a little devious but absolutely necessary. I set up a recording app on my phone. If Marcus was building a legal case against me, I was going to build one right back. He arrived at 3 p.m. with a laptop bag and what looked like a legal briefcase. Very official, very serious. The concerned brother who was sacrificing his time to save his poor, financially incompetent sister. Okay, he said, settling down on the floor since we still had no furniture. Let me show you what I've put together. He opened a thick folder and spread out documents across the carpet. Bank statements, photographs, printed emails, what looked like a detailed timeline of events. This is incredible, Marcus. How did you get all of this so quickly? I've been keeping track of things for a while, actually. I was worried about some of the spending patterns even before Mom and Dad disappeared. Keeping track? For a while. What do you mean? Well, think about it, Sophia. In less than 2 years, you went from being broke to spending millions of dollars on family gifts, expensive houses, luxury cars. From a financial planning perspective, that kind of rapid lifestyle inflation can be a red flag. A red flag for what? For impulsive decision-making, for emotional spending, for the kind of financial behavior that can lead to, well, to situations like this. He gestured at our empty surroundings. Marcus, are you saying you think I was being irresponsible with my money? I'm saying that people who come into sudden wealth often struggle with managing it appropriately. There's no shame in that. It's actually very common. But I wasn't struggling. I was taking care of family. I know that's how it felt to you. But look at the objective facts. He pulled out a spreadsheet that made my stomach drop. In 18 months, you spent $4. $2 million on family-related expenses. The house, the cars, the debt payments, the cash gifts, the vacation trips. $4.2 million, Sophia. When he put it like that, it did sound like a lot. But that money was meant to help people. Mom and Dad had sacrificed so much. Of course they had. And wanting to help them was beautiful. But spending that kind of money without any oversight or planning, that's where the concern comes in. Marcus pulled out another document. This is what my lawyer friend drafted, a petition for emergency conservatorship. It outlines the pattern of impulsive financial behavior, the vulnerability to family manipulation, and the need for immediate protective intervention. I read through the document with growing horror. Marcus had turned every generous gift, every thoughtful gesture, every act of love toward my family into evidence of mental instability. It says here that I have poor impulse control and impaired judgment regarding financial matters. I know it sounds harsh, but these are legal terms. The court needs specific language to understand the situation. And it says that without intervention, I'm likely to dissipate my assets through continued irrational spending. Sophia, I know this is hard to read, but think about what just happened. Your parents walked away with over $2 million. If we don't take steps to protect you, what's to stop something like this from happening again? I looked up at him. This man I'd shared a childhood with, who'd taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my math homework. He was sitting there calmly explaining why I needed to be declared legally incompetent to manage my own money. "Marcus, do you really believe I'm mentally unstable? I believe you're a good person who's been through a traumatic experience and needs some support making major financial decisions. That's all this is. Support. Support that would give him complete legal control over every dollar I'd earned. When would you file this petition?" "Well, the lawyer thinks we should move quickly. These kinds of situations can escalate, and the longer we wait, the more damage could be done." "How quickly?" "Tomorrow, if you're ready. Tomorrow." Less than a week after my family's disappearance, Marcus was ready to have me declared legally incompetent. "That seems really fast, Marcus." "I know, but think about it. Every day we wait is another day you're vulnerable. What if someone else tries to take advantage of your situation? Someone else, like him. Can I think about it overnight?" "Of course. But Sophia, I need you to understand how serious this is. Your parents just proved that even family can't be trusted with this kind of money. The only way to protect yourself is through legal safeguards." As Marcus packed up his documents and prepared to leave, he gave me another one of those calculated hugs. "I know this is scary, but I promise you, I'm going to take care of everything. You'll never have to worry about being taken advantage of again." After he left, I sat on the floor of my empty house and realized something that made me simultaneously furious and oddly proud. Marcus had spent over a year building a legal case against me, documenting my every generous impulse, turning my love for my family into evidence of mental illness. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed that Dad was just another greedy family member who'd stolen my money and disappeared. He had no idea that Dad had left me a roadmap to everything Marcus was planning, which meant tomorrow, when Marcus filed his petition to have me declared incompetent, I was going to be ready with my own surprise, and it was going to destroy him. Marcus filed his petition for emergency conservatorship at 9 a.m. sharp the next morning. By 10 a.m., I had been served with legal papers declaring that my own brother considered me mentally incompetent to manage my finances. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m. that same day. In Texas, emergency conservatorship petitions get fast-tracked when the petitioner can demonstrate immediate risk of asset dissipation. Marcus thought he had an airtight case, documented evidence of my irrational spending, recent family financial manipulation, and expert testimony about my need for immediate protective intervention. What he didn't know was that I'd spent the morning with my own lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Rebecca Chen, one of the top conservatorship defense attorneys in the state. She specialized in cases where family members tried to steal assets by claiming their relatives were incompetent. "This is textbook financial abuse," Rebecca said, reviewing Marcus's petition. "Your brother has been building this case for months, maybe longer. The documentation is too detailed, too prepared for this to be a spontaneous response to recent events. Can we prove that? We can certainly raise questions about his motives. But Sophia, I need to ask, do you have any evidence that contradicts his claims about your family taking the money?" That's when I told her about Dad's note and the bank account in Dallas. Rebecca's eyes lit up. "So the money isn't actually gone. Your father moved it to protect you from this exact scenario." "Exactly. But I need more than that to prove Marcus has been planning this." "What do you have in mind?" I showed her the recording I'd made of Marcus's visit, where he'd outlined his entire plan to have me declared incompetent. "This is gold," Rebecca said. "He's essentially admitting to building a case against you while pretending to be a concerned brother. But we need to be strategic about how we use this." "What do you mean?" "I think we should let him present his case first. Let him feel confident, comfortable. Then we'll systematically destroy every element of his argument." The hearing was held in a small courtroom, with just the judge, Marcus and his lawyer, Rebecca and me, and a court reporter. Marcus had even brought character witnesses, 2 family friends who would testify about my recent erratic behavior and generous spending. Judge Morrison was a stern woman in her 60s, who clearly didn't appreciate having her afternoon interrupted by family drama. "Mr. Torres," she said to Marcus's lawyer, "you're asking this court to declare a successful entrepreneur mentally incompetent based on her response to family manipulation. This is serious business. I hope you have substantial evidence." "We do, Your Honor. My client's sister has demonstrated a clear pattern of impulsive financial behavior that culminated in the loss of over $2 million to family members who then disappeared. Without immediate intervention, she risks losing her entire fortune to continued poor judgment." Marcus's lawyer spent 30 minutes laying out the case. Every gift I'd given my family, every generous gesture, every act of love reframed as evidence of mental instability. He called Marcus to the stand first. "Mr. Torres, please describe your sister's behavior following her business success." "It was concerning, Your Honor. Sophia went from being very careful with money to spending enormous amounts without any planning or oversight. She bought our parents a house worth $800,000, expensive cars, paid for luxury vacations. She gave them direct access to her bank accounts." "And did you express concerns about this spending?" "I tried to, yes. But Sophia seemed to think that having money meant she should spend it immediately. She talked about sharing her success and taking care of family. But there was no budgeting, no financial planning, no consideration of long-term consequences." "What happened that prompted you to seek this conservatorship?" "Last week, our parents disappeared with over $2 million of Sophia's money. They cleaned out her house, took everything, and left a note saying they were starting fresh somewhere she couldn't find them." "And how did your sister respond to this theft?" "That's what worried me most, Your Honor. She seemed almost accepting of it, like she thought she deserved to be taken advantage of. She talked about trusting family, about how she should have been more careful, but she didn't seem to understand the magnitude of what had happened." Marcus was good. I had to give him that. He painted a picture of a naive young woman who'd lost touch with reality after coming into money too quickly. Then his lawyer called Mrs. Patterson, our neighbor, who testified about the excessive decorating of my parents' new house and the constant delivery trucks bringing expensive purchases. Finally, they called Dr. Williams, a financial psychologist who'd never met me, but was prepared to testify about the psychological impacts of sudden wealth and how they can lead to impaired judgment. By the time Marcus's side finished presenting their case, I looked like a textbook example of someone who needed financial protection from her own poor decisions. Then it was Rebecca's turn. "Your Honor, my client would like to address the court directly before we present our evidence." Judge Morrison looked surprised. "Ms. Martinez, you understand you're not required to testify?" "I understand, Your Honor. But I think it's important that the court hear directly from me about what's really been happening in my family. I took the stand feeling more nervous than I'd ever been in my life, but I also felt something else. Absolutely furious that my own brother was trying to steal my life's work by claiming I was mentally ill. Ms. Martinez, your brother has painted a picture of someone who spends money impulsively and without consideration. How do you respond to that, Your Honor? Everything I spent on my family was planned and purposeful. I didn't buy my parents a house on impulse. I spent 3 months researching neighborhoods, looking at properties, making sure it was something they'd love and could maintain. The cars, the debt payments, the gifts, all of it was carefully considered. But Mr. Torres testified that you gave your parents direct access to your bank accounts. Doesn't that suggest poor financial judgment? It suggests trust, Your Honor. Trust that was apparently misplaced, but trust nonetheless. I gave them access to one account that contained money specifically set aside for family expenses and emergencies. And when they disappeared with that money, how did you feel? Devastated, confused, but not surprised that my brother immediately saw it as an opportunity to question my mental competence. I heard Marcus shift in his seat behind me. What do you mean by that? Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence that my brother has been planning this conservatorship petition for months, long before my parents disappeared. Rebecca stood and handed a transcript to the judge. This is a recording my client made of a conversation with her brother yesterday, where he outlined his plan to have her declared incompetent. Judge Morrison read through the transcript, while the courtroom stayed silent. I could feel Marcus's eyes burning into the back of my head. Mr. Torres, the judge said, according to this transcript, you told your sister you'd been keeping track of her spending patterns and documenting evidence for quite some time. Is that accurate? Marcus's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled him. Yes, Your Honor, but only because I was concerned. You were concerned enough to document your sister's financial behavior without her knowledge, but not concerned enough to have a direct conversation with her about these issues. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't seem receptive to criticism. Mr. Torres, did you discuss this conservatorship plan with anyone before your parents disappeared? The courtroom went dead silent. This was the moment that would either prove Dad's accusations or exonerate Marcus. I may have consulted with my attorney about potential options for protecting Sophia's assets. When did these consultations begin? Marcus's lawyer tried to object again, but Judge Morrison wasn't having it. Answer the question, Mr. Torres. Approximately 3 months ago. 3 months ago. A month before my parents disappeared, Marcus was already planning to have me declared incompetent. And what prompted you to begin exploring legal options to control your sister's finances 3 months ago? I was worried about the spending patterns. Mr. Torres, 3 months ago, had your sister lost any money to family manipulation? No, but had she made any financial decisions that actually harmed her economic position? Not specifically, but the trajectory was concerning. So you began planning to take legal control of your sister's money before any actual financial harm had occurred. Marcus was sweating now. I was being proactive about protecting her assets. Whose idea was it to document your sister's spending behavior? My attorney suggested, Mr. Torres, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you encourage your parents to accept expensive gifts from your sister in order to build evidence for this conservatorship petition? The question hung in the air like a bomb. No, Your Honor. I would never manipulate my family like that. But you did document their acceptance of those gifts as evidence of your sister's poor judgment? Yes, and you did present those gifts as proof that your sister was financially irresponsible? Yes. So you encouraged behavior that you later planned to use as evidence against her mental competence? Marcus was trapped, and everyone in the courtroom could see it. Then Rebecca played her ace. Your Honor, I'd like to call a witness via phone. Robert Martinez, the petitioner's father. My heart stopped. Dad was going to testify? Judge Morrison looked confused. Counsel, I thought Mr. Martinez was unavailable, having disappeared with the respondent's money. He's available now, Your Honor, and he has some very important information about what really happened to that money. The court clerk set up a phone connection, and suddenly Dad's voice filled the courtroom. Dad, I whispered, tears starting to flow. Hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry we had to do this the hard way. Judge Morrison took control. Mr. Martinez, you're under oath. Please state your name and relationship to the parties. Robert Martinez. I'm Sophia's father and Marcus's father. Mr. Martinez, did you and your wife steal money from your daughter? No, Your Honor. We moved money from accounts my daughter had given us access to into a protected trust account to prevent my son from using our financial relationship with Sophia as evidence in his planned conservatorship case. The courtroom erupted. Marcus's lawyer was objecting. Marcus was standing up, and I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. Order! Judge Morrison shouted. Mr. Martinez, are you saying that you knew about your son's plans before you left? Yes, Your Honor. I overheard a conversation between Marcus and his attorney where they discussed using our acceptance of Sophia's generosity as evidence that she was financially incompetent. They were planning to argue that her willingness to spend money on family proved she couldn't manage her affairs. And so you removed yourselves from the equation? We removed the evidence Marcus was planning to use against her. If we weren't around to serve as examples of her poor judgment, his case would fall apart. Mr. Martinez, where is this money now? Dad gave the court the bank information, the account numbers, everything. $2.3 million, untouched, waiting for me to reclaim it. Your Honor, Rebecca said, my client hasn't lost any money to family manipulation. Her father protected her assets from her brother's scheme. The entire foundation of this conservatorship petition is based on a false premise. Judge Morrison looked at Marcus with disgust. Mr. Torres, it appears that you attempted to manipulate this court by presenting a fabricated financial crisis to justify taking control of your sister's assets. Not only is this petition denied, but I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of potential fraud. Marcus went white. Furthermore, you are hereby ordered to have no contact with your sister regarding her financial affairs, and if you attempt to file any similar petitions in the future, this court will consider it harassment. As the hearing ended, and Marcus rushed out of the courtroom, I sat there trying to process what had just happened. My brother had tried to steal my entire fortune by claiming I was mentally ill. My parents had sacrificed their relationship with me to protect me from him, and I'd just learned that family loyalty can be both the most beautiful and the most dangerous thing in the world. But there was still one more revelation coming, because when Dad called me that night to explain everything, he told me something about Marcus that made the whole betrayal even worse than I'd imagined. That evening, my parents called me from a hotel room in Colorado, where they'd been hiding out for the past week. Sophia, we are so sorry, Mom said, crying through the phone. I had no idea what Marcus was planning. I thought we really were becoming too dependent on your money, that we needed to step back for everyone's good. Mom, it's okay. Dad explained everything in his note. But it's not okay, she insisted. We let you think we'd betrayed you. We let you sit in that empty house believing your own family had stolen from you. That was torture for us, knowing what you must have been going through. It was necessary, Dad interjected. If we'd told you the truth, you might have confronted Marcus before we could protect the money. And if he'd suspected we knew about his plan, what would have happened? There was a long pause. Sophia, there's more. Things about Marcus that we discovered that make this situation even worse than you know. My heart sank. How could this possibly get worse? What do you mean? After I overheard that phone call between Marcus and his lawyer, I started digging into his financial situation. I was trying to understand why he was so desperate to get control of your money. And Marcus is in serious financial trouble. Not just tight money. Serious, potentially criminal trouble. Dad explained that Marcus had been living far beyond his means for years. The nice apartment, the expensive clothes, the car, the lifestyle he presented, all of it financed through credit cards, personal loans, and increasingly desperate financial decisions. 6 months ago, he borrowed money from some very dangerous people to cover gambling debts. When that wasn't enough, he started borrowing from his clients' escrow accounts. His clients' escrow accounts? I felt sick. Marcus works in real estate, right? When he handles property transactions, he temporarily holds the buyer's money in trust accounts until the deals close. He's been borrowing from those accounts to cover his debts, planning to pay them back before anyone noticed. That's embezzlement. That's exactly what it is, and the Real Estate Commission is starting to investigate some irregularities in his accounts. So he needed my money to cover what he'd stolen? Not just to cover it, sweetheart. To disappear with it. The conservatorship wasn't just about controlling your finances. It was about gaining access to enough money to pay off his debts and start over somewhere else. I felt like I was going to be sick. My own brother hadn't just been planning to steal my money. He'd been planning to use it to escape consequences for stealing from other people. How much money are we talking about? From what I could piece together, about $400,000 missing from client accounts, plus another $200,000 in debts to the kind of people who don't accept late payments. Dad, we have to report this. We already did. While Marcus was in court today trying to get control of your assets, investigators were executing a search warrant on his office. I sat in my empty house, trying to process the magnitude of what my family had uncovered. Marcus hadn't just betrayed me, he'd betrayed his clients, his profession, and apparently some very dangerous people. There's something else, Sophia. What now? The investors who bought your company. Marcus was the one who introduced you to them, right? Yes. He said he had business connections who might be interested. Those investors paid $12 million for your company, but your company was worth more than that, significantly more. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, Marcus negotiated a side deal. He convinced the buyers to lowball you on the acquisition price in exchange for him receiving a $2 million finder's fee under the table. The room started spinning. Are you saying Marcus stole $2 million from my business sale? I'm saying your company should have sold for at least $15 million, probably more. Marcus sacrificed your financial future to get himself a quick payout that he immediately lost to gambling and bad investments. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My own brother had been systematically stealing from me for months, undermining my business success while positioning himself to steal everything I had left. Sophia, are you there? I'm here. Dad, how did you find all this out? When I realized Marcus was planning something legal against you, I hired a private investigator. I needed to understand what we were really dealing with. And the investigator found all this? The investigator found the gambling debts and the suspicious client account activity. The business information came from someone else. Who? Another pause. The investors who bought your company contacted me directly. They'd been feeling guilty about the lowball offer and wanted to make sure you were okay financially. When I told them what Marcus was planning to do to you, they decided to come forward about his side deal. They knew what Marcus did. They were part of it initially. Marcus convinced them that you were inexperienced and would be grateful for any offer. But after the sale went through, they realized your company was worth much more and started feeling like they'd taken advantage of you. So they're going to testify against Marcus? They already have. The FBI is building a case that includes the real estate embezzlement, the side deal on your business sale, and the attempted conservatorship fraud. FBI, my brother was going to federal prison. Sophia, I need you to understand something. Marcus didn't just wake up one day and decide to steal from you. This has been going on since before you sold your company. He's been planning to take advantage of your success from the very beginning. How is that possible? Because he never believed you'd actually succeed on your own. He thought your app was a silly idea that would fail, and when it started taking off, he got involved not to support you, but to position himself to profit from your success. I remembered all those times Marcus had seemed skeptical about my business. All the comments about it being cute, that I was playing entrepreneur. I'd thought he was just being a protective older brother. He'd been calculating how to exploit me. Dad, there's something I need to tell you. What's that? Yesterday, before the court hearing, Marcus tried to get me to sign some papers. He said they were just preliminary trust documents, but now I'm wondering, what kind of papers? I didn't sign them, but they looked like they might have been power of attorney documents or something similar. Sophia, if you still have those papers, the FBI needs to see them immediately. They're probably evidence of attempted fraud. I found the documents Marcus had left behind and read through them more carefully. They weren't trust documents at all. They were comprehensive financial power of attorney papers that would have given Marcus complete control over my accounts, investments, even my business decisions. If I'd signed them, he could have transferred every dollar I owned to himself legally. Dad, these papers, if I'd signed them yesterday, Marcus could have taken everything before the court hearing even happened. That was probably the plan. Get you to voluntarily sign over power of attorney, then use the conservatorship petition as backup if that didn't work. I sat there holding papers that represented the complete destruction of everything I'd built, papers my own brother had tried to trick me into signing while pretending to protect me. Sophia, we're coming home tomorrow. This nightmare is over, and we're going to be a family again. A real family without Marcus. What do you mean without Marcus? I mean that after what he's done, to you, to his clients, to our family, he's no longer our son or your brother. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Dad? No, sweetheart. You can be generous and forgiving about a lot of things. But what Marcus did was calculate and planned and designed to destroy your life. That's not family behavior. That's predator behavior. After we hung up, I walked through my empty house thinking about everything that had happened. In the span of a week, I'd lost my family, discovered my brother was a criminal, learned that my business sale had been manipulated, and nearly been declared mentally incompetent. But I'd also learned something else, that real family protects you, even when that protection requires sacrifice. Dad and Mom had given up their comfortable new life, subjected themselves to weeks of hiding and planning, and allowed me to think they'd betrayed me, all to save me from Marcus's scheme. That was love. Complicated, difficult, painful love, but love nonetheless. Marcus's behavior was something else entirely, and tomorrow, when the FBI arrested him, he was going to learn that there are consequences for betraying the people who trust you most. But the story wasn't over yet, because there was still one more shock coming, one more revelation that would change everything I thought I knew about my family's motivations, and it would come from the most unexpected source of all. 3 days after Marcus's arrest, I was finally starting to feel like my life might return to some version of normal. The money was back in my accounts. My parents were home, and the FBI assured me that Marcus would be facing serious federal charges for multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. I'd even started shopping for furniture to replace everything that had been removed during Dad's protective scheme. That's when Emma Rodriguez showed up at my door. Emma was one of the investors who'd bought my company. The one Dad had mentioned felt guilty about the lowball offer. I'd never met her in person, since Marcus had handled most of the acquisition negotiations. Ms. Martinez? I hope I'm not intruding. I'm Emma Rodriguez from Pinnacle Ventures. Of course. Please come in. Though I should warn you, the place is pretty empty right now. She stepped inside and looked around at my mostly unfurnished living room with a strange expression. Ms. Martinez, I came here to tell you something that I think you need to know. Something about your brother's situation that goes beyond what you've already learned. My heart sank. How could there possibly be more? What do you mean? May I sit down? We settled on the floor, just like I'd done with Marcus a few days earlier when he'd been trying to manipulate me into signing away my rights. Ms. Martinez, your brother didn't just arrange for us to buy your company at below market value. He came to us with a much more complex proposition. What kind of proposition? Emma pulled out a folder from her briefcase. He approached us about 8 months ago, long before your company was officially for sale. He told us that his sister had developed an interesting app, but was in over her head business-wise. In over my head? He said you were brilliant technically but naive about business, and that you'd probably accept whatever offer came your way because you didn't understand your company's true value. I felt that familiar sick feeling in my stomach. He offered to help us acquire your company for well below market rate in exchange for a finder's fee, but that wasn't the interesting part of his proposition. What was the interesting part? Emma looked uncomfortable. He also told us that you were likely to be financially irresponsible with the proceeds from any sale. He suggested that we might want to consider a structured deal that would protect you from your own spending habits. What kind of structured deal? A deal where the acquisition money would be placed in a managed trust with a family member serving as trustee, releasing funds to you over time based on approved financial plans. I stared at her. Marcus was trying to get you to build a trust into the acquisition deal? Not just a trust, Ms. Martinez. A conservatorship. He wanted the sale contract to include provisions that would trigger automatic financial oversight if you demonstrated irresponsible spending patterns after the acquisition. Marcus had been planning this for 8 months. Before I'd even decided to sell the company, he was already plotting to control the money I'd receive. Did you agree to any of this? Initially, we were intrigued. Your brother was very convincing about his concern for your well-being. He painted a picture of a talented but unstable young woman who needed protection from her own success. But when we actually met with you during the acquisition process, you were nothing like he'd described. You were sharp, professional, completely in control of your business decisions. We started to wonder if your brother's concerns were genuine. Emma pulled out more documents, so we did our own due diligence on your brother. What we found was concerning enough that we decided to distance ourselves from his suggestions. What did you find? Gambling debts, questionable business practices, and a lifestyle that didn't match his declared income. We realized that Marcus might be more interested in accessing your money than protecting it, but you still bought the company for below market value. We did, and I'm not proud of that. By the time we'd figured out your brother's real motivations, we'd already committed to a purchase price. We should have renegotiated, but she looked genuinely ashamed. But you'd already gotten a good deal, and you decided to keep it. Yes, and we've regretted it ever since. Emma reached into her briefcase again and pulled out a check. Ms. Martinez, this is a check for $3 million. It represents the difference between what we paid for your company and what we should have paid, plus interest. I stared at the check, not quite believing what I was seeing. You're giving me $3 million? We're paying you what we owed you in the first place. Your brother's scheme cost you money, and we were complicit in that. We want to make it right. Emma, you didn't have to do this. Legally, the sale was final. Legally, yes. Ethically, we took advantage of information your brother provided to undervalue your company. That's not the kind of business we want to do. I took the check with shaking hands. There's something else, Ms. Martinez. More? Your app? Inventory Mate? We've continued developing it since the acquisition. It's been even more successful than we projected. We'd like to offer you a consulting contract to help guide future development. You want me to work on my own app? We want you to help us make it the best it can be, and we want to pay you appropriately for that work, both retroactively for the original sale and going forward as a partner. I sat there holding a $3 million check and a partnership offer, trying to process how dramatically my life had changed in the past week. Emma, can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you really doing this? I mean, the money, the partnership offer. You could have just walked away and never said anything. She was quiet for a moment, because watching your brother try to destroy you reminded us of why we got into business in the first place. We wanted to support innovative people who are trying to build something meaningful. What Marcus was doing to you, that's the opposite of everything we believe in. And because, she continued, we have daughters, and the idea that someone's own family would systematically undermine their success the way your brother undermined yours, it's unacceptable. After Emma left, I called my parents to tell them about the unexpected windfall. $3 million? Mom gasped. Sophia, that's incredible. It gets better. They want me to partner with them going forward. I might end up making more money from the ongoing development than I made from the original sale. I'm so proud of you, Dad said. You built something amazing, and now you're getting the recognition and compensation you deserved all along. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. How did you know? How did you figure out that Marcus was planning all this before it was too late? There was a pause. Sophia, I need to tell you something. The private investigator I hired? I didn't hire him after I overheard Marcus's phone call. What do you mean? I hired him 6 months ago. I'd been suspicious of Marcus's interest in your business success for a while. It just didn't seem genuine. You were investigating Marcus for 6 months? I was protecting you for 6 months. Marcus might be my son, but you're my daughter, and I could see that he was positioning himself to take advantage of your success somehow. I felt tears starting. Dad, you spent 6 months planning to protect me? Sophia, I spent your entire childhood teaching you to be strong and independent and capable. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even your own brother, destroy what you'd built with your own talent and hard work. That night, I sat in my house, which was slowly being refurnished, and thought about everything that had happened. Marcus was facing federal charges that would probably send him to prison for 5 to 10 years. My parents had risked everything to protect me from him. The investors who'd bought my company had voluntarily paid me millions of additional dollars and offered me a partnership. And I'd learned that sometimes the people who seem to support your dreams are actually planning to profit from them, while the people who seem to have abandoned you are actually fighting the hardest battle they can to save you. But there was still one more conversation I needed to have, because tomorrow I was going to visit Marcus in jail, not to forgive him, not to reconcile, but to make sure he understood exactly what he'd lost when he chose greed over family. I almost didn't go. For 3 days, I stared at Marcus's name on the jail's visitor list, trying to decide if I was ready to face the person who'd systematically planned to destroy my life while pretending to love me. But I realized I needed closure. I needed to look my brother in the eye and understand how someone I'd shared a childhood with could have become so willing to hurt me. The Travis County Jail visiting room was exactly as depressing as you'd expect. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, thick glass separating visitors from inmates. Marcus looked terrible. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. The confident demeanor had been replaced by something that looked like desperation. "Sophia," he said through the phone on his side of the glass. "I'm so glad you came. We need to talk about—" "No," I interrupted. "You need to listen." He looked surprised. I'd never spoken to him that way before. "Marcus, I'm not here to help you. I'm not here to forgive you. I'm here to make sure you understand exactly what you threw away when you decided to steal from me. Sophia, you don't understand the pressure I was under. I understand perfectly. You were in debt because of gambling. You stole money from your clients' accounts. You needed my money to cover what you'd stolen and pay off dangerous people." His face went white. "How do you know about—" "I know about all of it. The gambling debts, the embezzlement, the side deal you made when you sold my company for less than it was worth. I know about the conservatorship you'd been planning for 8 months before our parents disappeared. Sophia, I was trying to protect you. Stop. Just stop lying. Even now, sitting in jail facing federal charges, you're still trying to manipulate me." I leaned forward, looking directly into his eyes. "Marcus, do you want to know what hurts the most about what you did? Sophia, it's not the money. It's not even the betrayal. It's that you never believed in me." His mouth opened, but no words came out. "For months, you watched me build something incredible from nothing. You saw me work 18-hour days, sacrifice everything I had, pour my heart and soul into creating something that would help people. And the entire time, instead of being proud of me, instead of supporting me, you were calculating how to steal what I was building." Tears started flowing down my face, but I kept going. "You convinced investors that I was too naive to understand my own company's value. You told them I was mentally unstable and needed financial oversight. You documented every generous thing I did for our family as evidence that I was incompetent. That's not— You never saw me as your brilliant little sister who'd achieved something amazing. You saw me as a mark, as someone to exploit." Marcus was crying now too, but I didn't care. "Do you know what Dad told me yesterday? He said he'd been investigating you for 6 months because he could see that your interest in my success wasn't genuine. Our father saw through you before I did. Sophia, please. And do you know what the investors told me? They're giving me $3 million to make up for the money you cost me when you convinced them to lowball my company. $3 million, Marcus, plus a partnership deal that could be worth tens of millions more." His face crumpled. "So not only did your scheme fail completely, but it backfired so spectacularly that I'm actually better off financially than I would have been if you'd never tried to steal from me." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. Are you sorry you did it? Or are you sorry you got caught?" He couldn't answer. "Marcus, I want you to understand something. You're going to prison for 5 to 10 years. When you get out, you'll have a felony record that will make it nearly impossible to get a decent job. You'll probably never be able to work in real estate or finance again. I know. But the worst part? You'll never have a relationship with me again. Or with Mom and Dad. You destroyed our family because you were too proud to ask for help and too greedy to see me as anything other than a source of money." I stood up to leave. "Sophia, wait, please. Isn't there some way? Can't we find a path back to being family?" I looked at him through that thick glass. This person who'd once taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my homework, who'd become someone I didn't recognize. "Marcus, family doesn't try to have each other declared mentally incompetent to steal their money. Family doesn't spend months building legal cases against each other. Family doesn't turn love and generosity into evidence of mental illness. But I'm still your brother. No, you're not. My brother would have been proud of what I accomplished. My brother would have supported my dreams instead of trying to profit from them. My brother would have asked for help when he was in trouble instead of planning to destroy me. I picked up the phone one last time. You chose greed over family, Marcus. You chose manipulation over honesty. You chose to see me as a victim instead of seeing me as your sister. Those were your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences. As I walked out of that jail, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For months, I'd been unconsciously carrying the weight of Marcus's manipulation, his subtle undermining of my confidence, his constant suggestions that I needed oversight and guidance. Even when I'd thought he was being supportive, part of me had internalized his message that I couldn't be trusted with my own success. Now finally, I was free of that. I drove home to my house, which was finally starting to feel like home again. Mom was in the kitchen cooking dinner. Actual home cooking. Not the expensive restaurant meals we'd been having during our brief period of artificial wealth. "How did it go?" she asked. It went exactly how it needed to go. Dad looked up from the newspaper he was reading at my newly purchased dining table. "Any regrets?" "Just one." "What's that?" "I regret that it took me so long to see what he was doing. I regret that I trusted him with my business connections and my financial decisions." "Sophia," Dad said gently, "trusting family isn't a character flaw. Marcus's betrayal says nothing about you and everything about him. I know, but I'm never going to be that naive again." "Good," Mom said firmly. "Trust, but verify. Love your family, but protect yourself too." That evening, I got a call from Rebecca Chen, my lawyer. "Sophia, I have some news. Marcus's lawyer contacted me about a plea deal." "What kind of plea deal?" "He's willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a 7-year sentence and full restitution to his clients. He's also willing to sign away any claim to future family inheritance or contact. He's willing to legally cut himself off from the family. It seems like he finally understands that his relationship with you and your parents is over. This would make it official." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Whatever paperwork needs to be signed to make Marcus legally not my brother anymore, I'll sign it." 6 months later, I was back in Austin, running a consulting firm that had grown out of my partnership with Pinnacle Ventures. We were developing 3 new apps and had a team of 12 employees. I'd learned to trust my own judgment completely. I'd learned to be generous without being naive. And I'd learned that sometimes the people who seem to abandon you are actually the ones fighting hardest to protect you. Most importantly, I'd learned that real family isn't about blood, or obligation, or tradition. It's about showing up for each other when it matters most, even when that requires sacrifice. Dad and Mom had proven that by risking everything to save me from Marcus's scheme. And I'd proven it by choosing to forgive them for the temporary heartbreak of thinking they'd betrayed me, because I understood they'd done it out of love. Marcus had chosen differently. He'd chosen exploitation over support, manipulation over honesty, greed over family, and now he was paying the price for those choices, alone in a federal prison, cut off from the people who would have helped him if he'd just asked instead of trying to steal. Hey everyone, I hope this incredible story of family betrayal, hidden schemes, and ultimate justice kept you on the edge of your seat. If you're amazed by how Dad outsmarted Marcus and protected Sophia from this elaborate financial manipulation, smash that like button. It really helps me know what kind of content you love. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And let me know, were you shocked by Marcus's betrayal? Or did you see it coming? Have you ever had a family member try to take advantage of your success? How would you have handled this situation? Make sure you're subscribed, because I've got more mind-blowing family stories coming your way. Tales of inheritance drama, business betrayals, and people who learned the hard way that greed destroys everything it touches. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for joining me on this emotional roller coaster, and remember, success can reveal people's true character in ways you never expected. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones planning to hurt you, while the people who seem to abandon you are actually the ones saving your life. Until next time, protect your dreams, trust your instincts, and never let anyone make you feel bad for achieving something amazing.